It's always a great pleasure to have Chairman Congressman Paul Ryan on the program. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Mark. How are you?
I'm okay. I watched the speech today, Congressman, and I really couldn't believe it.
About 12 feet away from him, right in the front.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, does he have a grasp of what the hell is going on in this country?
Well, what I got out of it was he basically said that people like myself and Jeb Henschling, who was sitting right to my right, are un-American, that we're interested in pitting children with autisms or Down syndrome against millionaires and billionaires, that we're ending, America as we know it. And if only we'd kind of get on with his program, everything would be okay. I've never seen a president give a speech like this before. I've never seen a president stoop to this level of, distortion, demagoguery, partisanship. When he invited us to come to the speech, myself, Henschling, and Dave Camp, the three of us who are our chairman, and we are on the Fiscal Commission, we were led to believe that there was going to be an olive branch, that he wanted to talk about mutual agreement and respect, and maybe I was led to believe that there was going to be a Social Security plan he was going to offer, and then we get this total political broadside. It really did, quite honestly, kind of surprise me. I expected these kinds of comments from Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid when we put this budget out. That kind of goes without saying, but to get these things from the president, just amazing to me, and it really poisons the well. I mean, he's not talking about trying to bridge differences or find common ground on this or that area. He's basically trying to demean his political adversaries and set up a bunch of straw men and then knock them down and try and win the debate by default. I'm not sure who said it, but he's basically a pyromaniac in a field of straw men. And, what we got was he just wants to raise taxes. He's already calling to raise the top tax rate to 44.8% in his budget that he gave us a couple months ago. He disavowed the Fiscal Commission in his budget that he set up last year, and so now what is he doing? He's calling for another Fiscal Commission to delegate leadership to them, and he's basically telling them, go find less spending cuts, less savings than I even detailed to the last Fiscal Commission that I didn't agree with. And that's where we are.
Do you think he's driven purely by ideology? Do you think he's over his head and he doesn't really comprehend all these issues because he's not really focusing that much on it?
I don't know. When this last weekend on Sunday, we heard that he was going to do this speech. I think it bothered him that he got all this criticism for punting on the budget. When the Washington Post, which is usually a fairly favorable paper to him, his point of view, says he ducked his responsibility, he punted. He got 2 months of that kind of press. Then we put out a plan. We put out a plan that actually cuts spending and balances the budget and pays off the debt. And he was sort of, looking like he wasn't leading. So we heard he was going to give a speech today, and on Sunday, I guess it should have tipped it to me more. He didn't send his budget director out on the Sunday talk shows to talk about it, or his Treasury Secretary or his chief economic advisor to talk about what he was planning on doing. He sent out his campaign manager, a guy named David Plouffe, I think is his name. And that should have tipped it to me, which is if your campaign manager is your messenger on your economic and fiscal, policy, that's saying something. And what we got was that. We got a campaign today. We got a campaign speech, and we got a very, very, a vilifying campaign speech. And that sure makes it tough to get this thing fixed, I'll tell you that. And, to suggest that our attempts to get spending under control, which is the problem, by the way, we don't have a tax problem in this country. People pay plenty of taxes. Taxes are going right back to the historic revenue level of where they've been. It is spending that is on a tear. When my 3 kids are my age, spending will be double what it is today at that time as a share of the economy. It'll literally, instead of taking 20 cents out of every dollar everybody makes in America like we have for the last 40 years, we're going to take 40 cents out of every dollar we make in America for government, the path we're on right now. He wants to accelerate that and go faster. And we don't want that to happen. We want to get the government back down to its historic size, limited. We took, constitutional founding principles, applied it to the problems of the day, to try to get back to freedom, opportunity, economic freedom, limited government. And he's somehow saying that this kind of a plan is un-American. So, I guess he just decided to double down on politics. And he gave us a political speech today when we thought, or at least were being led to believe, he was going to try and sort of bridge the differences. You know, it's going to be triangulation or something like that. Well,
what happens to Medicare and Medicaid if he gets his way? Which is
so as you know,
what happens
about this? We propose to keep it right now, Medicare, for everybody who's got it and who's going to get it in 10 years, and then we move to a system that takes the successes from like the prescription drug benefit, a system like what I have as a member of Congress, where you have more choice and competition. He's saying no, none of that. I'm going to give the IPAB. The IPAB is the Independent Payment Advisory Board. I think it's got 12, maybe 10 people on it that he appoints who can make unilateral recommendations and changes to how Medicare and Medicaid reimburses providers, meaning price controls. And it doesn't go to Congress for a vote. They just do it. And so his health care laws, you know...
Hold on. I just want to underscore this. So rather than individuals making decisions for themselves, he would have a board of masterminds who sit there and decide who gets what and if they get anything.
Exactly. And so that's already in Obamacare. And what his idea today was, number one, he acknowledged Medicare is growing at an unsustainable pace. At least he acknowledged that. And number two, I'm just going to give more power to this iPad and deeper targets to hit, spending cuts for them to hit, and that's how we will reform it. We will root out waste. We will make healthcare more efficient. We, meaning his delegates, his appointees on the IPAB, which get to circumvent Congress, they will decide what you get from Medicare. They will decide what your doctor gets. They will decide whether your doctor can get paid for doing a particular procedure or not. They will decide what the hospital gets for giving you services. And he just basically said, I want to do more of that. And that was his solution. And that's for current seniors. And that's not, we're grandfathering seniors from any change whatsoever, and we're proposing reforms for 54-year-old and below. He's saying, I want to do this now. I want to get this going today.
Doesn't he also drain over $400 billion from Medicare into something?
Yeah, it's 682. He takes $682 billion from Medicare to pay for Obamacare. I mean, you've heard all the years about how Congress has raided the Social Security Trust Fund, which it did, by the way, and spent it on all these other government programs. That used to not happen with Medicare until Obamacare. As you know, he's taking now it's $682 billion from Medicare to spend on the Obamacare entitlement. And so what our budget does is it prevents, we repeal Obamacare. We prevent that from happening. We make sure those savings go to make Medicare solvent, not to fund Obamacare.
And on Medicaid, which is breaking the bank of a lot of states, he expands it and dumps it on the states.
Yeah, he expands it by a third. He expands eligibility by a third. And then he leaves the states with the tab at the end of the decade.
So how do these ideas save Medicare and Medicaid, to use his phrases?
Well, they accelerate the bankruptcy of the programs, and we know that. We've gotten letters from the CBO and the actuaries who tell us that they're going insolvent. You can't double count your Medicare savings money, and that, as you know, the states will be stuck with a much higher Medicaid tab. So our budget deals with this, fixes it, makes these programs solvent. And they're the biggest drivers of our debt. Medicare and Medicaid are the two biggest drivers of our debt. They're growing at amazing growth rates, and they themselves represent tens of trillions of dollars of empty promises the government's making to people. And he's basically saying, pile on more empty promises in Medicaid and give my board the power to ration health care within Medicare as a way of saving money and bending the cost curve.
Basically, what he's doing here is really centralizing as much as possible the authority of government, and he's insisting that a huge amount of money that we make, that we have in the private sector, be drained out of the private sector and gobbled up by the federal government.
Well, if you want to use numbers, what he does is he takes basically about a fifth of about 5% of GDP, and just gives it to the public sector. What we do is we take that 5% of GDP and give it back to the private sector. Instead of, our historic level of government spending at the federal level is 20% of the economy, meaning 20 cents of every dollar made in America, historically, it's going to the federal government. We keep it that way. Right now, we're at 25 cents. 25 cents out of every dollar is going to the government. He not only banks that for the government, but under the path we are on, the path he's accelerating, it goes to 40 cents out of every dollar goes to the government by about, say, 2035, 2037, and then it goes up from there throughout the century.
You know what's annoying to me, Congressman, is what they basically say now is if you try to cut their profligate spending, then all of a sudden the whole safety net's destroyed.
Yeah.
In other words, they're at have they not increased discretionary spending by about 80%?
Yeah, 85% when you throw the stimulus in there over the last 2 years. Yeah, so he's basically saying those of us who are cutting back on this spending, who are restoring federalism, block granting to the states, giving the states more control of the things they should have more control over, that we're ending the social compact, it's a pessimistic America, that we're basically un-American is what he's saying.
I want to ask you this. Did the stimulus package have any money for autism?
Not that I know of.
So basically, what he's taken is the stimulus package, about $800 billion a year, and every year it's added in now?
Well, I don't even know where the autism thing comes from. My guess is by repealing Obamacare, which has all these health insurance mandates, that's probably what he's talking about. All our alternatives have always been to fund high-risk pools at the state level, so people with extremely high health care costs, pre-existing conditions like a child with autism get covered. So it's not as if we're saying, forget about the person with pre-existing conditions or the family with a child of autism. We just want to go with we don't think the government should take over health care, and we think there's a better way of dealing with that family and getting them the coverage they need without going poor.
So
he's basically saying by repealing Obamacare, we don't care about that family with autism. I think that's where he gets that talking point.
What do you do now when you have a president who's obviously not interested in the economy? I mean, I've got to conclude he's just not interested in the economy. He's running now, he's sprinting in the election cycle. What can you do?
I don't know, because he's clearly in an election mode here. That was just he threw down the gauntlet on us with just politicizing. I mean, that was the campaigner-in-chief speaking, not the commander-in-chief, vilifying his political adversaries in this way. It's very unfortunate because it's not building bridges, it's poisoning the well. And obviously we have a different philosophy of governing. We have a different idea of what the role of government ought to be. I mean, I fundamentally believe that the role of government is to protect our natural rights, to promote equal opportunity, and to stick with the characteristics of upward mobility, of opportunity, of prosperity, so that we can make the most of our lives as we see fit. I don't think he sees it like that. I think what we got today is that the role of government must switch from protecting our rights to promoting equal opportunity so we can make the most of our lives to equalizing the results of our lives, equal outcomes, not equal opportunity. And that the government must take more from the private sector, redistribute it, and run large sectors of our economy like healthcare under the name of equality. And that is what America is all about, not the stuff we're saying. And that's basically what he told us today, as far as I can tell.
Well, Congressman, I appreciate you coming on. And you know what? In the end, good wins out, I believe.
I think so, too.
So just keep at it.
They know what this country's all about. They know why our founders fought and created this country. They know what makes America great, and it's not its big government. It is its people and giving them freedom, limited government, economic freedom. That's what makes it great.
And if the society collapses, everybody goes down.
Yeah. If we have a debt crisis, everybody gets hurt, and what we're trying to do is preempt one. We're trying to preempt the debt crisis. And we're trying to get people back into lives of self-sufficiency. We don't want a nation of food stamps. We want a nation of paychecks. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And, we got a challenge on our hands.
Listen, keep up the good work. You got millions of infantry here, politically speaking, behind you. Just keep at it, and we'll work this through.
All right, man. Have a good one.
God bless you, man. You too. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. I think we'll take a break now, Mr. Producer, and we'll be right back.